What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR. Sitting across from me this week and every week, don't believe his lies. It's Desra.
And sitting across from me, believe all of his lies, is Brian Paul.
Do I tell lies?
Constantly.
Constantly.
I love this game.
And every week on Why We Love PlayStation VR, we sit around and discuss an old PlayStation VR game. We pull it out of the archives, and you know what? None of this is true this week.
No, well, this week and this month, because it is Spooky Month. Scary games.
Yeah, continuing the trend of Oktoberfest.
Yes.
Kind of. We're going to talk about scary games, and this is one of the most recent scary games we've gotten.
One of the most recent and most talked about, I'd say.
Most talked about, for sure. What game did we decide to talk about this week, Desra?
We're talking about Transference.
Transference.
Yes.
By Ubisoft Entertainment and Spectravision.
Spectravision.
Released on September 18th, $24.99.
Yes. Spectravision, of course, the developer that brought us games like...
No, this is it, isn't it?
Yeah, this is it.
This is the first game.
This is their first game.
However, it's they're not a team without reputation.
No. They've actually... so it's founded by Elijah Wood, Daniel Noah, and I forgot my third partner.
Josh Waller.
Yes, Josh Waller.
Everybody knows Elijah Wood as a famous actor.
Yeah, he was that guy in Alfred, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Alfred?
No. What was the dog thing?
Wilfred. He was the stoner in Wilfred.
Yep.
Yeah, that's how
the
he
only
should be
role.
remembered.
The only role you know of.
Yeah. But
On the Murder in Sin City.
Daniel Noah and Josh Waller are directors and writers. And the crazy thing is I should know everything about Spectravision.
Yeah.
But I knew nothing before this show. I knew nothing about Spectravision because
Not even chainsaw fights?
nothing.
Oh.
Nothing. But as it turns out, these guys, the three of them, they got together and got to know each other over their love of specific kind of horror movies.
Okay.
And they're generally independent horror movies.
Yep.
And the ones they listed specifically, Let the Right One In, which is a good one.
English or original?
That's exactly the point. The Orphanage and Martyrs, all of these movies, the ones that they were bonding over, foreign ones.
Yeah.
And all discussing how they couldn't be done the way American audiences or Hollywood studios would make them for American audiences.
Right.
And so their goal was to Daniel Noah said it best. He said, our ultimate goal is for a horror film to win Best Picture.
Cool.
Right?
Yeah.
So they made
hope so.
On Netflix, I think you might have seen A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. I didn't see it, but I saw it go by. Now that I know it's Spectravision, I want to see it. Yep. And then more recently, everyone's been talking about Mandy.
Wasn't there The Boy?
The Boy was another one.
Yeah, it was like the little kids.
But The Boy was not the boy I thought it was, because there was another movie called The Boy about like the little mannequin boy.
Yes.
And and this was totally different.
Yep.
Yeah, which I want to see this too.
No, that's like of the list that was there, The Boy really kind of caught my attention.
Nice.
So I definitely want to check that. And Rainn Wilson's in it too. So hey.
So now that we've talked at length about who Spectravision is, let's talk about Transference.
Yeah. So Transference is a game. It's a partnership between Ubisoft and Spectravision, and is them taking their kind of horror expertise and Ubisoft taking their, I'll say, VR expertise and married together and bringing us a game.
I mean, in all fairness, Ubisoft is one of the biggest AAA developers we have working for
absolutely
on VR games.
Yes.
So absolutely. What kind of game is Transference?
I mean, it's a horror game if we're going to talk about genre. As far as like gameplay itself goes, puzzle game, adventure game, I guess.
So what I was fascinated to find out, one of the terms they use on the PlayStation Store itself was the term escape room. And I was like, oh man, it's like that didn't even occur to me while I was playing it. Like not even for a minute did it occur to me that this might be an escape room style puzzle game, because I think of games like 18 Floors, Dying Reborn, where you're literally stuck in a room and there are puzzles scattered around, and and they all kind of sort of contribute to helping you get out. And this, I think, does that.
Okay,
but it's it's less transparent about it.
Yeah, it is. And actually, you saying that reminds me, I did read a review, and I'm sorry, I promise myself every time that I get better about actually referencing the reviews, I reference, and I didn't. I'm very sorry. This was Scholarly Gamer.
Wow, all right. Good for you.
Basically saying, and he actually was talking about the fact that in escape rooms, one of the things is it's different people's perspectives on the problem is what leads to success. Like, you really can't solve it by yourself. You need a couple of different, and that's really kind of the core of this game, is you're exploring the space through 3 different people's perspective.
That's absolutely true. So how this works is it mostly takes place in like one apartment.
Yes.
The home of Raymond Hayes.
Mm-hmm.
He's the father of the family. He's also a scientist. His wife, Catherine Hayes, they share a last name.
Cello player.
Not through blood. But also their son, disturbed son, Benjamin Hayes.
Mm-hmm.
Not a cello player.
No.
But he is a Hayes through blood.
Wants to be just like Dad.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you walk around, you check things out, and the thing I found right away, like you start outside of the apartment complex,
right?
And you're able to pick up all these things that are sort of flashing, like glitching, because you're in a computer simulation. Yeah. Do we need to go down this rabbit hole? Let's explain what we're doing here.
Well, so the basic premise, and this isn't any kind of spoiler, is
it's in the trailers.
Raymond has figured out a way to transfer people's consciousness either to each other or to machines. He's a little kind of vague on the details. The idea being you could see the world through someone else's eyes.
Yeah, I mean, in the trailers they make it look like it's this giant machine, and you put on a VR headset, and suddenly you're in their memories.
Right, and so we're taking the role of basically ourselves as a kind of independent observer, and have jumped into this world that's been created to contain the memories, the consciousness of. We don't know yet.
We don't know, and it's sort of the program or the consciousness or the memories. They're all sort of incomplete.
Yes.
Right. There are missing sections everywhere, which lead to puzzle solving. But also, like, the items that you're meant to look at or find are glitchy.
Yeah.
So it looks very inside a VR game like.
But also, like, literally inside a VR game, and that, like, you get, and it says like object missing, a couple directory trees / doorknocker.obg.
Right, you see the word door knocker and you're like, oh, I need to go find this door knocker.
Right, yeah.
But it's more subtle because of the way it's presented to you.
Yeah, but you're actually seeing like the code, the snippets of code for it. So I thought that was a nice touch.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the things you're finding, like, before you even walk into the apartment building are so meaningless. Right? You're finding things like newspapers, and you're in pizza pamphlets and stuff, and just things that you would find. And you start wondering, you're like, why is this game wasting my time? And I got to ask you, do you feel like the game was wasting your time with these things?
I don't think so. I think what threw me about them is it's like, on one hand, it's like it's trying very hard to localize it in the real place. It's like it is smacking over the head with, this is Boston.
Oh, yeah.
But then you look up, and the name of the newspaper is the Boston Paper. Which is oddly generic.
Right.
And the name of the Chinese place is just like some, you could have used like real Boston landmarks. And at first it's like, well, this is, I'm trying to justify it. Like, well, maybe it's just because this is like some idealized version of Boston or something, or maybe the guy who made the simulation doesn't really care. But then actually watching through the credits, and there's like 30 different countries with their own specialization teams. Like, I wonder if they just flipped that to, so the Poland one says whatever city,
So wait a minute. Does the game check online before we start playing?
I don't know.
Like, did Dave Station get, like, did his paper say Orlando news?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. And the research I found and the time I had, I couldn't get an answer to that.
I didn't even think that was a thing. I was just like, oh, this takes place in Boston.
Right.
But the thing is the more of these things I started picking up, I feel like I started getting the sense, like, their thought process behind all of it.
Okay.
Is like, if you take a ton of things that seemingly have no meaning and you put them all together, one meaningless item might not tell a story, but a whole bucket load of meaningless things that might tell a story. And the more of these things you pick up, the more the story starts to reveal itself. And it's very, very subtle. And I'm going to say subtle a bunch of times because the storytelling is often in your face, but I think the majority of it is very subtle.
Yeah, well, to take a real life, not spoiler example, I mean, one empty pizza box in a doorway is nothing,
Are you talking about my apartment? There's like 7 right now.
Right. If you see a stack of 7 empty pizza boxes, that starts to tell a story.
It tells a very accurate story.
But
has anyone seen my cat?
Right. Wait, you have?
Exactly.
Oh my.
Wow. But that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
The environmental storytelling is, I think, phenomenal.
And not only that, it's not like everything you pick up doesn't matter. There are some items you pick up and it triggers, an audio clip or a voice of one of the characters. We know what. Before we go any further, we should talk about spoilers. Like how
we don't want to spoil anything.
Okay.
I think it's perfectly acceptable to talk about this game because. Before we go any further, let's tell you, the game's only 2 hours long.
Right.
I mean, I think if you spend time in looking around, picking everything up, it's a 2-hour game. You could probably blast through it much quicker, especially if you don't get stuck on any of the puzzles. If you just feel from beginning to end, I'm betting you could do about an hour and 40 minutes pretty easily.
I hit about 2 hours, but I mean, there are video clips you unlock as you go through.
Yeah.
And I only got, I'd say 2/3, maybe half of them.
Oh.
Yeah, I did.
I only missed 2 of them.
Oh, really? Okay.
2 or 3. So I don't know. I was looking around everywhere though. So anyway, but you had mentioned you kind of hinted at the point where we're going to tell the story from different perspectives.
Right.
So how does that happen?
So as the game progresses, you don't realize it at first, but you're seeing it from you're first seeing it from your perspective as the outside observer, and you get in the building eventually, and just where the apartment door is just kind of this black space. Then I forget exactly what triggers it, but you start to see it from Ben's perspective.
Yeah.
There are light switches that eventually start showing up, and you flip the switch. There's a switch in the hallway, and you switch to another character's perspective.
And it's not just another character's perspective; it's another character in another time.
I don't know if it's necessarily another time.
Okay.
Yeah. What it is, it's really taking the idea that two people, exactly this actually, two people looking at the same thing can have a very different experience.
Interesting.
3 of the videos that you eventually unlock are basically the same event happening at the same birthday party through each character's, their perspective, and not just like their visual perspective, their emotional, what they're bringing to it, the things they thought were important.
Yeah.
The whole Rashomon idea. So when you're seeing the apartment through Ben's eyes, it's you have a very different framing of things than when you see it through Raymond's or Catherine's eyes.
Yeah.
There is a little time play, but I don't think it's as much. I think the time is more in the video clips than actually exploring the space. I think you're exploring the space after everything has happened.
Okay.
But
I don't think we don't even need to have a debate about that. I think it's very there are certain times where I think it's very clear you're in the same place. Certain times it's not, but because you really are in the mind of these people, I think on my own time I want to explore what you're talking about, because I think it's a very interesting perspective. Now the deal is that these light switches not only switch you from perspectives, but I mean they allow you to solve puzzles.
Right, because you can find an object in one perspective that's not in another and kind of carry it over to the other room.
Or a door will be locked in one and not in another, or a door won't be there in one and it'll be there in another.
Yeah, an early example, when you're exploring the house as Benjamin, like, you don't really ever find the parents' bedroom until much, much later in the game, because, hey, you know what, little kid doesn't really have, mom and dad's bedroom is kind of off limits.
Yeah.
And so is the cooler in the garage.
No spoilers. So I mean, I don't know. There's let's tackle some of the basics here.
Okay, well, so the puzzles I found, I mean, range from pretty obvious, I think, to a little obtuse, but I don't think any of them are like game-breakingly difficult.
Okay.
I think most of them can just, with a little patience and kind of looking around, you can figure it out. But this isn't like a puzzle game where playing the puzzles is the reason to play this game.
Yeah.
I think this is a story they want to tell, that they've got to throw some kind of game sort of things in there to let people say, oh, I played the game.
Yeah.
I think at its core, this is a movie you play.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. Like when I was playing the Door recently. The Door is, it's very much like, hey, figure out this combination, and there are numbers on the back of pictures and numbers over here and numbers over there, and you got to find out how the numbers work together. I think there's like one number puzzle in this entire game.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so very seldom are you going to be like, oh, I got to do a little bit of math to figure this out, or I got to, like whatever. I think about 60 to 70% of the puzzles are pick up this object from over here and bring it over here.
Right.
And that's kind of the extent of it.
But it doesn't feel like fetch questy, though.
No.
Like sometimes, we can think of Loading Human, where it's just like, oh, yeah, remember the tea plant you saw over there? Walk all the way over there and it's not.
Here's a step-by-step tutorial on how to make tea.
Right.
4 hours into the game.
Yeah, I think everything is really germane to the plot.
Yeah.
It matters. It makes a difference. You're not just like picking random objects. You're finding letters on the ground that actually have something to do with the story.
Yeah. Now, as far as I got to talk about the controls a little bit.
Okay.
Because I do feel like when you're walking around, you're picking things up, you're interacting with them, you're looking at them. I think most people are going to look at this and go, "Oh, it's cool, 2 move controllers." That's not the case.
Nope.
And I got to say, I think the first time I played through this, I was like, that's not a big loss.
Mm-hmm.
But when I played through again today for this show, the whole time I was kind of thinking like, I feel a little distant from this world.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe by design because of what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
You're supposed to be in a simulation.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely, the whole time I was like, man, I just want to reach out and pick that thing up. That's what I want to do in virtual. I want to pick things up and throw them. And then on top of it also, we're using the DualShock 4 to walk around. 2 things about the DualShock 4. One is that the analog sticks, first-person shooter controls is very, very simple to control.
Right.
You walk very slow.
You do.
And if you try to look as you're walking, you slow down even more. So if you're just like we were talking about evasion recently, how if you can't strafe very well because your head movement and your analog stick are doing 2 different things, and the game's like, we don't like this.
Okay,
and that's what happens in Transference quite a bit.
Yeah, so I guess I didn't know that because I would kind of walk to a space, stop, and then look around.
Yeah.
So I was never kind of like walking and scanning around as I was doing it. So
I found myself using tunnel vision, like just looking straight ahead. I'm like, I want to get over there, and doing that because if I looked while I was walking, it would slow right down. I'm like, come on, I just want to get there. But and that kind of made me feel like I wasn't enjoying my surroundings as much or paying attention to the little details. And the other thing about the DualShock 4 is when you pick up an object, you hit X, but it's over here. Mm-hmm. And then to examine it, you have to hold R2?
Yeah, it was R2.
And then you move the analog sticks to rotate it.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I have that item. Why is it not just there's no inventory in this game?
Well, and that's at first I thought it was like, oh, this is like my inventory. I'm going to be able to pick up an object. I'm going to have a bunch of them over here and I'll be able to cycle through. It's like, well, no, you've got the object that's there. And if you pick up another object, it kind of goes into this weird holding place. And so you kind of have 2 objects picked up, but not really.
But not if you walk away from it.
Right.
Yeah. So in anything you put down, it does look like it goes into a holding spot, but really it's just floating in midair.
Yeah.
Glitching. And then you walk away from it, and I think they will often, if it's an important item, it stays there. And if it's not, it glitches back to where it was.
Yeah, so that's definitely the control scheme is a little weird.
A little weird, but it doesn't take long to get used to.
Yeah.
But when it's only a 2-hour game, I feel like, halfway through a 2-hour game, it's like, oh, it took me half of the game to get used to the controls. That seems like a little much, even if that means it only took you an hour to get used to it.
Right, and the other thing is, too, it's weird because, my biggest complaint, we talked a couple weeks about Torn.
Yeah.
One of my biggest complaints there was, how slowly you moved. It was so frustrating. Even though you're moving probably pretty similarly slowly in this, I think the world is detailed enough and there's enough going on in each space that it doesn't feel as bad.
I agree.
You're never really in a rush to get anywhere in this game.
Yeah.
Yes, you're moving slowly, but I think it doesn't feel like it as much because you're actually doing things as you're walking, and there's a lot to see, and you're also just moving around this one small apartment.
Yeah. Yeah, that is another thing. It is a very small area, even though sometimes when you flick that light switch, the apartment looks radically different than it did the last time you were there. But overall, it is mostly in one apartment, a stairwell, a basement, a little bit outside, and not too much else.
Yeah. And the other thing I definitely have to say, though, this was kind of, I said this off camera from in last week's episode, but what has been annoying me about all these horror games is there's one trick that Batman Arkham VR pulled off that I haven't seen anyone else try and do, that they actually started playing with this game. And to me, if you're making a horror game, this seems like just obvious. They start messing around with the rules of the space. You know, I don't want to spoil the end of Arkham if you haven't played that, but if you haven't, go play that. But there are times where, like, you know, there's a door. It's like, okay, I know this door goes to room A, and you close it. You do something else. You come back and you open the door, and it doesn't go to room A anymore. It goes to a closet, and it doesn't sound like that's a big deal. But that actually made me like, what the hell? It just freaked me out because until things like that happen, it doesn't give you any clues that things like that can happen. There's, you know, I think it's not a spoiler because it's the first time. If you try and go up the stairs and just go past the apartment you're supposed to, you just end up back at the same apartment.
Oh yeah,
you can go upstairs infinitely long, and you just end up at that. And then if you try to go back down and see the lobby, no, it's not there anymore.
Hey, we're talking about movement speed and stuff.
Yeah.
And there is no teleportation option. It's only full locomotion. Mm-hmm. How was your motion sickness?
I got a little twinge of it. I got to be honest. I played it. I started off in the default, which has kind of been just the way I test games out. And I was getting a little motion sick, not crazy, not enough to make me stop. And actually to the point where, like, I was enjoying this enough that even in that discomfort, I was like, fuck it, I'm just doing this. I did, you know, about halfway through, it was getting to the point where, like, well, maybe I should try. And I turned on the blinders and I turned on the things. It doesn't, I don't know.
I don't think blinders are helpful.
Yeah, it didn't really make a difference. But again, it wasn't intense enough where I felt the need to stop. And the game was engrossing enough that I was powering through anyways.
Nice.
Which is not something I usually recommend to people. No. But this wasn't like instant vomit, but it wasn't super comfortable either.
Okay, good. And what about the scare factor? We're always trying to scare you in VR. Did this one get you at any point?
So the jumps, there are some jump scares in this. Yeah. You know, it's stock and trade. I mean, they happen a couple times here and there, but it's not like those aren't the main way it's trying to scare you. The main way it's trying to scare me is if you listen to the litter box. Actually, was it that one already air?
I'm totally lost.
Well, there's a litter box in which we talk about kind of our feelings and issues with horror. And my biggest thing is, like, this jump scares don't really work on me because I don't feel like you've done the groundwork to pay it off. It's just, you know, jumping up and saying boo. But this game, the family dynamic, you know, and honestly, there was a review. I think it was from the Verve. That basically said, look, this game should kind of have trigger warnings if you've dealt with, like, abuse, because it totally...
Okay,
like, that's kind of the central core of it. It's like, okay, yeah, there's the spooky Transference VR thing, but the real fear and the real terror comes from walking into this family situation that is so screwed up. Yeah. And you watch it sort of deteriorating. Or you eventually realize that it's deteriorating, and then ends up being, you know, an abusive, obsessive father, and it's just, you know, how that breaks the family dynamic and all that. And that whole thing absolutely got me. And, you know, there's one point, I mentioned it today when we were doing the live show. It's like, you learn something, and I actually literally said out loud, "Oh no, you didn't do that, did you?" You know, or no, what the hell did I actually wrote it down. What the hell did you do? I actually yelled that out loud at Raymond, which I haven't had that kind of experience from a horror game.
You're actually interacting with him as if he's a real person.
Yeah, this is creepy as hell.
Well, hold on a second. I like where you're going with this, but let's the graphics in this game.
Yeah.
I'm playing on the Pro. You're playing on the OG.
Yes.
How realistic are you finding these things?
I think it looked really good. It looked really realistic to me. One thing that sort of broke for me, though, you see a lot of video clips of the characters, and the acting is really, really well done and really engrossing. And then you see the character models every once in a while, like you'll see a character model of the dad in VR, right, and it looks like hot garbage.
Oh, see, that's the thing, is that if those full motion video live video clips weren't in the game, I would have been like, oh, there's the kid, and there's the mom, and there's the dad, and they they're there doing their thing or whatever, and I would have been totally fine with it.
Yep.
But the fact that moments before I was watching the mom on a television screen, full motion video of her playing the cello or crying or something, and I was looking and I was like, this is like the uncanny valley you're always talking about, right? Where it's like if the whole game was using something as realistic as full motion video, it would have been fine.
Yep.
But the fact that it actually created its own difference in the game, it's differentiating the character models from the live video. It's like it actually created a disconnect for me.
Yeah, I would say I'll back off from calling it hot garbage, but you're right. It's the comparison between the two. It's like the so wonderfully emoting and just compelling performances, and then there's just this blocky, art. And again, it's supposed to be artifacty. It's this Transference VR thing. But yeah, it's one thing I wanted to circle back on the emotional thing. I was wrong. There was a game that had this kind of emotional reaction to, and that was Her Story. Not a VR game, but the same kind of like as the story unrolls, you just get this feeling of dread where you start to figure out what happened. And I think like Her Story, it ends in a similarly vague way, I guess. Which may or not be satisfying to you. If you want a clear, yes, this is the way the story ended for good or for bad, A plus B plus C happened, and you don't really get that.
Yeah.
Closure is the word I'm looking for.
So $25.
Yes.
2 hours long.
2 hours long.
But what do you think? Should we rate this?
Yeah, I'll get this ready.
All right.
So our rating scale is pretty simple to understand. A 1 is you have to buy this. If you have a PSVR, it absolutely has to be in your library. It's one of the best things in the system. Just go and buy it. 2 is sure, why not? If it's on sale or if it's a genre you particularly like, definitely pick it up. We're not going to give you any crap about it. It's good enough. 3 is no. Do not buy this. Friends don't let friends buy crap. We need to vote with our dollars and tell developers that we are not going to take this. So 1, 2, or 3. What do you think?
We talked quite a bit about Spectravision to start this whole thing off.
Yes.
And in Ubisoft, we kind of glossed over and said, oh, they're like a AAA developer and they're doing VR games. Mm-hmm. But Spectravision, I'm happy that we spent so much time talking about them because I think they bring something to this game that we haven't really seen before. Mm-hmm. Resident Evil 7 is probably my favorite PlayStation VR game. Yeah, not probably, it is. And there's just no way around it. It's such a great game. Mm-hmm. But when you bring filmmakers into the mix, when you say, hey, here's a AAA development team like Capcom, but we added filmmakers and writers and directors to the mix,
right,
you get something a little bit different.
Yeah,
you get something that doesn't quite feel like a video game. Feels like a movie, like you said. But something we barely talked about was the audio design.
Oh yeah,
which is just out of control amazing.
Yeah,
like from beginning to end, it's nonstop. Like you can hear people banging on walls and yelling, and it sounds like stuff that if you've ever been in like an abusive household or these are things you might have heard, and it all just sounds so real.
But not just that, it doesn't just sound like it's bang bang. It's like, oh no, that's 2 bedrooms away.
Oh yeah,
and then that one was closer.
Yeah,
like it's not just the audio track hits. Like they've done the work to, no, that audio is coming from this space over there. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And the music is perfectly timed and just like very. It's ambient when it has to be, but very seldom is it just ambient music. Usually it's like, I don't want to say an assault on the senses, but I feel like a lot of this game is like just knows how to get you.
Yeah.
And if you ever saw my review, I feel like I screwed up a bit in my review.
Okay.
Like the review doesn't show any of these character models that we were talking about.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to spoil anything.
Okay.
But I feel like when you see these characters, like because a lot of time you are walking around without seeing anybody.
Yeah.
When you finally there's a person and finally like this voice that I've been hearing.
Yeah.
And then here it is in front of me as a person.
Right. Oh, they're really here.
It really hits home.
Yeah.
And you're like holy crap. Okay, enough messing around. This is a 1. And it's $25. But as I said in my review, it's like 2 of the best hours you can spend in VR.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a lot of replayability out of this. You can go back to find the audio logs and stuff, but when I finished my first playthrough, I was like, I don't really care about going back and getting them.
Yeah.
And when I went back through today, I just ignored a lot of them.
Yeah. I'm gonna go. Actually, I'm gonna go with the 1 also.
Yeah.
I'm pretty notorious on the channel for not being a big fan of horror games. This is the first one where I was like, yes, this is exactly like when I want a scary story. This is the kind of thing I want. Like I said, Her Story, or the ongoing saga of I Have No Mouth But I Must Scream continues to on. Okay. So our friend has started reading it, and we're getting really angry texts now. But that kind of like just dread and awfulness, this is exactly that. And I think also on the inverse of 3, like we hit on the 3 is like we need to vote with our dollars and say, tell the developers that no, we don't want this kind of crap.
Yeah.
No, I think we need to vote with our dollars and tell Spectravision that we want more.
Yeah.
Because I think you nailed it. Like, these are professional, filmmakers. Well, filmmakers are professional storytellers, and these are professional storytellers taking the medium of VR seriously to tell a story that they couldn't really tell in a traditional movie, but you also couldn't really tell in a traditional game. VR is exactly the place to tell this kind of story.
FYI, you can play this without VR. I can't imagine it. I played it for a couple minutes. I was like, oh, this looks really nice. And I was like, but this is a world I want to be inside of.
Right, and that's exactly the whole point of the game, and the themes of the game is being in somebody else's world.
Yeah.
So by watching on the flat screen, it's nice. It expands their audience, but I think it betrays the actual story they're trying to tell.
Yeah, the mission statement is like totally lost.
Yeah.
And just as far as this being October, I was actually slightly wary about doing this game because, yeah, it's October. Yeah, we wanted to do scary games. Yep. But, like, when I think of Transference, I don't think of, like, Paranormal Activity and Don't Knock Twice and Resident Evil 7. I put this in a different league. I go, yeah, it's scary because man, does it get the job done of scaring you and jump scares and all the mental stuff it does to you. But it's so much more.
Right.
It's so much more. It is so well told. It's emotional. And it feels like it just feels more than horror.
Well, it's just what it is it's telling the story. The only monsters are us. Right. Resident Evil 7, all those again you mentioned, the monsters are a monster or, super science gone awry or whatever. But this is the monsters are us. And which I think that's the story I can sink my teeth into. So.
All right. So that pretty much does it, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Well, listen, so before we go, we want to make sure we say, hey, how about that award show? Wasn't that an awesome award show? Saturday, man.
And also, I want to be clear. This is a game that scared me. Okay? So, all right.
Nice. PlayStation Award Show was a rousing success.
Woo-hoo!
We had an amazing time. Everyone had a blast.
We wore ties.
I hope every single person enjoyed it. It was a lot of work to put on, and next year I promise it's going to be even better, and everyone's going to get to vote. Absolutely. So sorry about that.
We're going to do it live in LA.
Perfect. We're not promising nothing. Also, make sure you hit us up on Patreon if you like our videos. We really, really appreciate your support. All the Patreon supporters are amazing.
Yeah.
But really, like it's. I mean, if you have any money, it's never enough. I'm working 5 days a week, about 20 hours a day on this thing.
Yeah.
So all of your support is greatly appreciated. Patreon.com/withoutparolegames. And before we end every episode, we always ask the same question: what did you think of Transference? Did you play it day one? Are you going to play it now that we talked about it and ruined it for you?
You should.
Or, what else?
Well, I don't think we ruined too much. I mean, the experience is really the experience.
Yeah.
So
we didn't ruin too much. And also, what other games do you want us to talk about? That's always our biggest question.
Sadly, October is going to be over before we even know it, and we're going to be off onto other games. So.
No. It's scary game forever on Without Parole. Only scary games from now on.
Yeah, we have the next couple weeks locked and loaded, but like Ryan was saying, we're always looking for your suggestions. So let us know if there's something you want to cover that we haven't yet. Go ahead and hit it up there.
Werewolves Within. We know Battle Mode Bainbridge.
I know.
We know it's coming.
We need a wiki.
Yeah.
So because I've forgotten half the stuff we covered.
Yeah. Yeah, talking about Batman. I was like, we did that episode.
Yeah.
Did we? Yeah, I don't know. No. We talked 40 minutes about a 20-minute game. All right, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us for another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR. I'm Brian Paul.
I'm Des.
And we'll see you next week.